A car company that most people in the West had barely heard of a few years ago has just created something that is making some of the biggest names in off-roading nervous. A machine that can travel up to 1,400 kilometers without stopping to recharge. A giant SUV that can spin 360 degrees on the spot without moving forward or backward even an inch. And yes, it comes from China. This is not science fiction. This is the Jetour Traveler 8. And what it brings to the table is making legendary brands look over their shoulders. Companies with huge V8 engines, decades of history, and iconic badges are suddenly facing a new kind of rival. One that is not following the old rule book. And what makes this story even more interesting is that the difference between this machine and traditional off-roaders is not just about horsepower or range. It is about a completely different philosophy, a completely different way of thinking about what an off-road vehicle should be. Once you understand how this machine works, the old way of building off-road vehicles starts to feel surprisingly outdated. If you enjoy discovering the biggest technology breakthroughs before everyone else, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join Beyond Human, because we cover the future before it becomes normal. For more than 50 years, off-road vehicles followed almost the exact same recipe. Whether it was the Jeep Wrangler, Toyota Land Cruiser, Land Rover Defender, or Ford Bronco, they all worked in very similar ways. A powerful engine burned fuel, the transmission sent power to a transfer case, the transfer case split power between front and rear axles, and the axles turned the wheels. Simple, reliable, and proven. Engineers spent decades improving this formula with bigger engines, stronger axles, tougher frames, and more power. The idea was simple. If the terrain is tough, build something even tougher. And it worked. The Land Cruiser crossed deserts, the Defender climbed mountains, and the Wrangler became famous for conquering trails that ordinary cars could never survive. These vehicles earned their legendary reputation. But there was one problem nobody really wanted to admit. Eventually, adding more weight and more mechanical parts creates new problems. More gears mean more things that can fail. Bigger engines mean higher fuel consumption, and more complexity means higher repair costs. When something breaks deep in the wilderness, repairs become difficult and expensive. Western automakers spent decades refining this old system, while Chinese engineers were asking a different question. What if we started from zero? And that single question changed everything, because the most surprising thing about the Traveler 8 is something almost nobody expects. It does not rely on traditional axles connecting the wheels. Instead, every wheel has its own electric motor. For wheels, for independent motors, for separate power systems with no mechanical connection between left and right. The crazy thing is that the Traveler 8 does not stop with incredible traction and massive horsepower. This is where things become almost unbelievable. When General Motors introduced the Hummer EV with its crab walk feature, people were amazed because such a large vehicle could move diagonally. It was impressive and useful in tight spaces. But Jetour engineers looked at that technology and thought bigger. The Traveler 8 uses advanced rear-wheel steering that allows the rear wheels to turn up to 10 degrees. By itself, that already makes this huge SUV surprisingly easy to maneuver. But when that system works together with 4 independent motors, something extraordinary happens. Because each wheel has its own motor, the vehicle can spin the wheels on the left side forward, while spinning the wheels on the right side backward at the exact same time. The result is something that looks like science fiction. The entire SUV rotates 360 degrees on its own axis without moving forward or backward even slightly. It literally turns like a tank. And unlike some showroom tricks, this feature actually solves a real problem. Imagine being 2 hours deep into a mountain trail with a cliff on one side and rocks on the other. Suddenly the path ends. In a traditional off-roader, turning around could be dangerous and stressful. You might have to reverse for hundreds of meters and hope nothing goes wrong. But the Traveler 8 simply rotates in place and drives back the way it came. That one feature alone could save drivers from situations that might otherwise become extremely risky. But here comes the question every hardcore off-roader asks immediately. What happens when the battery runs out? This is the biggest reason many people still trust traditional gasoline engines. When you are exploring remote mountains, deserts, or forests, charging stations do not exist. Cell service might not exist either. Running out of energy far from civilization is every adventurer's nightmare. Western electric off-roaders, like the Rivian R1T and Hummer EV, deliver impressive performance, but heavy off-roading consumes energy quickly. Steep climbs, deep mud, and running electrical equipment all reduce range significantly. And once the battery gets low, options become limited. Jetour engineers knew this concern had to be solved if electric off-roaders were going to earn the trust of serious explorers. So they developed something very clever. The Traveler 8 uses what is called an extended range electric vehicle system, also known as EREV technology. It sounds complicated, but the concept is actually simple. Hidden inside the vehicle is a gasoline engine. But here is the surprising part. That engine never powers the wheels directly. There is no mechanical connection. Its only job is to act like a generator. It produces electricity and sends that energy to the battery and motors. Think of it as carrying your own power station everywhere you go. When battery levels drop, what makes the Traveler 8 so important is that it is not just one impressive vehicle. It represents a much bigger shift that is happening across the automotive world. For nearly a century, companies like Jeep, Land Rover, Mercedes-Benz, and Toyota defined what an off-road vehicle should be. They set the standards. They built the legends. And they earned the trust of millions of drivers around the world. Their vehicles became symbols of durability and adventure. But most of these companies continued improving the same basic formula. Better engines, stronger axles, tougher suspensions, and more expensive technology. They refined the old system because it had worked for decades. Meanwhile, Chinese manufacturers were asking completely different questions. Instead of trying to build a slightly better version of existing vehicles, they started designing vehicles from the ground up. Companies like BYD, NIO, Li Auto, and Jetour began approaching automobiles the same way technology companies approach smartphones and computers. Build a platform, improve it quickly, and constantly update it instead of waiting years for the next generation. That difference in thinking is creating a huge advantage. Traditional automakers often spend 5 to 7 years developing a new platform before it reaches customers. By the time it arrives, competitors may already be preparing their next generation. Chinese manufacturers move much faster. They launch products, collect data, improve software, and continue evolving. Instead of treating a vehicle as a finished machine, they see it as a platform that keeps getting better over time. Software updates can improve battery management, traction systems, navigation, and even driving characteristics without owners buying another vehicle. This approach is changing the rules of the game. It is very similar to what happened in the smartphone industry years ago. Companies that once dominated suddenly found themselves struggling against new competitors that moved faster and adapted more quickly. And perhaps the biggest surprise is that many Western buyers still do not fully understand how quickly things are changing. A few years ago, Chinese cars were often associated with low prices and questionable quality. But today, that image is disappearing fast. Chinese manufacturers are investing billions into research and development. They are leading battery technology, electric motors, software integration, and production efficiency. Some of the world's most advanced batteries are already coming from China. Companies like BYD have become giants in electric vehicle production, while brands like NIO and Li Auto are introducing technologies that challenge established luxury manufacturers. Even Tesla, one of the companies that changed the industry forever, depends heavily on Chinese manufacturing and suppliers. The competition is becoming more intense every year. And the Traveler 8 perfectly demonstrates this new philosophy. And that brings us to the biggest question of all. Is the Traveler 8 just an impressive experiment, or is it showing us what the future of off-roading will actually look like? Because when you look closely, this vehicle is doing something much bigger than introducing a few cool features. It is changing the benchmark itself. For decades, people measured great off-road vehicles by engine size, axle strength, suspension travel, and mechanical locking systems. Bigger usually meant better. More metal meant more capability. More cylinders meant more respect. Those ideas created some legendary machines. But the Traveler 8 introduces an entirely different standard. A standard measured by software intelligence, electric precision, and reaction speeds that happen in milliseconds. Instead of relying on brute force alone, it combines power with intelligence. And that combination changes everything. Think about what this machine offers in one package. Nearly 1,280 horsepower for independent motors, instant torque, a 360-degree tank turn, advanced traction management, and a total driving range of approximately 1,400 kilometers. Add the ability to power your campsite, eliminate range anxiety through its extended range generator system, and provide sports car acceleration inside a large family SUV, and suddenly you begin to understand why so many experts are paying attention. Right now, no traditional Western off-roader combines all these capabilities in a single package. Some offer excellent off-road ability. Others provide great performance. Some deliver long-range comfort. But bringing everything together in one vehicle is what makes the Traveler 8 so interesting. The truth is that the off-road world has always evolved. Decades ago, many enthusiasts refused to believe automatic transmissions could replace manual gearboxes. Then automatic systems became faster and more reliable. People laughed at turbocharged engines before they became common. Hybrid technology faced criticism before proving itself. Electric vehicles were once considered impossible for serious performance, yet today some EVs are faster than supercars. History has shown again and again that revolutionary ideas often sound ridiculous at first. Then, they slowly become normal. The Traveler 8 might be going through that same stage right now. Some people see it as a gimmick. Others see it as the future. Time will decide who is right. Another interesting fact is that younger buyers are beginning to think differently. They grew up with smartphones, software updates, and advanced technology. They expect their vehicles to be smart, connected, and constantly improving. They are less attached to tradition and more interested in capability and innovation. To them, it matters less where a company comes from and more what it can actually deliver. If a vehicle performs better, offers more features, and costs less, many buyers are willing to give it a chance. But there is another reason why the Traveler 8 is making headlines, and it has nothing to do with horsepower or even its ability to spin like a tank. It is because this SUV represents something that very few people expected to happen so quickly. For decades, China was seen mainly as the world's factory, producing products designed somewhere else. But today, the situation is changing dramatically. Chinese companies are no longer simply manufacturing technology. They are creating it. They are investing enormous amounts of money into batteries, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, robotics, and electric vehicles. In fact, some industry analysts believe China is now leading several key technologies that will define the next generation of transportation. The Traveler 8 is one example of that shift. It shows that innovation is no longer coming from only one part of the world. Competition has become global, and that competition is accelerating progress faster than ever before. One of the reasons Chinese manufacturers have advanced so quickly is because they are willing to take risks. Traditional companies often have decades of history and millions of loyal customers. That history is valuable, but it can also make change slower. New ideas must go through years of development and approval before reaching production. Chinese brands, however, move at a different speed. They experiment rapidly. They introduce new technologies aggressively. They update systems frequently. And they are not afraid to challenge assumptions that have existed for generations. That willingness to move quickly has allowed companies like BYD, NIO, Li Auto, and Jetour to surprise competitors around the world. Many people laughed when Chinese smartphones first appeared. Today, some of those same brands are among the largest technology companies on Earth. The automotive industry could be experiencing a similar transformation. Of course, none of this means the old legends are finished. Toyota, Jeep, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, and Land Rover still build incredible machines. Their experience, reliability, and global reputation cannot be ignored. Millions of drivers trust these brands because they have proven themselves over decades. But history teaches us that no company stays on top forever without continuing to evolve. Kodak once dominated photography. Nokia ruled the mobile phone market. Blockbuster controlled home entertainment. Then everything changed. Technology rewards innovation, and industries can shift faster than anyone expects. That is why many experts believe the next decade will become one of the most competitive periods in automotive history. And perhaps that competition is good news for everyone. Because when companies compete, consumers win. Better batteries, smarter software, longer range, faster charging, lower prices, and more capable vehicles become possible. Engineers around the world push each other to create something better. And maybe that is the most fascinating part of this entire story. The Traveler 8 is not trying to become a better version of yesterday's off-roader. It is trying to become something completely different. And that difference might be exactly what changes the industry forever. Because when people first hear about 4 independent motors, a 360-degree tank turn, and nearly 1,400 kilometers of combined range, it sounds almost too good to be true. But the reason these features matter is because they solve real problems that drivers have faced for decades. Getting stuck on narrow trails, worrying about traction, carrying extra generators, and stressing over fuel or battery range have always been part of the adventure. The Traveler 8 attacks those problems from an entirely new angle. Instead of making old systems stronger, it asks whether those systems are still necessary at all. And this way of thinking is spreading across the automotive world. Engineers are beginning to realize that software can sometimes replace complicated mechanical systems. Electric motors can deliver instant power with incredible precision. Artificial intelligence can react faster than human drivers. Advanced sensors can monitor conditions hundreds of times every second. These technologies are changing the definition of performance itself. In the past, raw horsepower was everything. Today, intelligence matters just as much. A smart vehicle can use its power more effectively, adapt to changing conditions instantly, and provide capabilities that mechanical systems simply cannot achieve. That shift is creating a new generation of machines that are not just stronger but smarter. What makes this even more interesting is that many of these technologies are still improving. Battery energy density continues to increase. Charging speeds are becoming faster. Solid-state battery research promises even greater range and safety. Artificial intelligence systems are becoming more powerful every year. Vehicle software updates can unlock new functions without changing hardware. Imagine buying a car that becomes better over time instead of becoming outdated. That idea would have sounded impossible 20 years ago, yet today it is becoming reality. Some experts believe future vehicles could gain entirely new capabilities through software alone. In many ways, cars are beginning to resemble smartphones on wheels, constantly evolving and improving. And perhaps that is why traditional manufacturers are paying very close attention. They know the competition has changed. The battle is no longer just about engines and transmissions. It is about software, batteries, processors, and intelligent systems. Companies that adapt quickly will shape the future. Those that resist change risk being left behind. History has shown this again and again. Every major technological revolution creates new leaders and challenges old ones. And that is why so many industry experts believe vehicles, like the Traveler 8, are not just interesting experiments. They are warning signs that the rules are changing. For decades, off-road performance was measured by engine size, axle strength, and mechanical durability. But now, software, electric motors, intelligent traction systems, and energy management are becoming just as important. The companies that understand this shift early will have a huge advantage. The ones that ignore it may eventually find themselves trying to catch up. Of course, no vehicle is perfect. Real-world reliability still takes years to prove. Traditional off-road machines earned their reputations over millions of miles and countless adventures. The Traveler 8 still has to prove itself in extreme environments and over long periods of ownership. Questions about maintenance, software support, battery longevity, and global service networks remain important. Hardcore off-road enthusiasts are right to ask tough questions. After all, trust is not built overnight. It is earned over time. But even if the Traveler 8 itself is not the final answer, the ideas behind it are impossible to ignore. Independent motors, intelligent power distribution, extended range technology, and software-driven performance are trends that are only becoming stronger. What seems revolutionary today could become normal tomorrow. The same way fuel injection replaced carburetors and automatic transmissions became faster than manuals, many of these technologies could eventually become standard features across the industry. And perhaps that is what makes this story so exciting. We are watching history happen in real time. The next generation of vehicles is being created right now. New competitors are appearing. Old assumptions are being challenged. Technologies that once seemed impossible are becoming reality. And the race is moving faster than ever before. Whether you believe the future belongs to electric vehicles or whether you still prefer the sound of a traditional V8, one thing is clear. Competition is pushing the entire industry forward. And in the end, drivers everywhere will benefit from better technology, better performance, and more choices than ever before. The Jetour Traveler may 8th not be the end of the story. In many ways, it could simply be the beginning. A sign that the future of off-roading will be smarter, faster, and very different from anything we have known before. So now we want to hear from you. Would you trust this Chinese high-tech machine on a hardcore trail far from civilization? Or would you still choose a traditional Land Cruiser, Wrangler, or Defender with a proven engine and decades of history? Let us know in the comments because there are no wrong answers, and the discussion is just getting started. If you enjoyed this video and want more stories about the technologies changing our world, make sure you subscribe to Beyond Human and turn on notifications so you never miss the next breakthrough. Because the future is arriving faster than most people realize, and here at Beyond Human, we will be there to explore every step of that journey with you.